Why sex work is often referred to as the oldest profession in the world. Not only that, why is it so widely accepted? Let us break down the historical, cultural, and social reasons behind this widely accepted perception in a few parts, looking at both historical evidence and modern perspectives. So let's get into it.
Hello and welcome to Gunset, a channel for intelligent and curious people like you. Before we proceed, let me tell you one thing. If you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe. It means a lot to me. And if you have already subscribed, tons of thanks for your support.
The phrase "the oldest profession" has been around for centuries, and many attribute it to sex work. But where did this idea come from? Some historians trace the saying back to the 19th century, when it became a common belief in Western societies. It was used to suggest that sex work, like many other jobs, has existed throughout history, often driven by economic or social pressures. But at the same time, it refers to the economic empowerment of women, indicating that a certain section of educated and cultured women has always thought that they could use their body as a service to mankind. Therefore, the concept that sex is also a work or service to society has a deep root in human history. Although a certain section of people always believe that because any physically intimate act is associated with human feelings and emotions, therefore it cannot be bought like other consumer products. As a result, they still protest against this profession and want to be banned. We will come back to this moral and ethical part in the later part. Let us take a look at the evidence from ancient civilizations. Sex work is often linked to ancient civilizations. In Mesopotamia, around 2000 BCE, sacred prostitution was practiced in the temples of gods like Ishtar and Inanna. These women were seen as performing a sacred service, offering their bodies as a form of worship. This wasn't necessarily sex work as we understand it today, but it does show that sexuality has been tied to societal roles for thousands of years. What is the role of women in ancient societies? In ancient Greece and Rome, prostitution was legalized and regulated. Women, men, and even young boys were involved in various forms of sex work. The most well-known were the Hetaira in Greece, educated and high-status companions who engaged in sexual and intellectual activities with wealthy men. In Rome, brothels were common, and sex work was openly discussed in public spaces. Here, sex work was a significant part of the economy, despite its complex social standing. However, evolution has taken place through the ages. Fast forward to the Middle Ages, and we see sex work take a different form. In many parts of Europe, prostitution was regulated by authorities, sometimes even given the status of necessary evil. It is because this work has been regarded as a way of survival. In times of war, famine, or economic hardship, women, and sometimes men, turned to sex work as a means of survival. Many cities had designated areas known as red light districts where sex work was concentrated, but the social stigma remained. What are the modern perspectives on sex work? Today, the phrase "oldest profession" remains popular, but modern discussions around sex work have shifted significantly. Because as we progress, we have started thinking differently. The conversation has evolved to focus more on human rights, labor rights, and health issues. Scholars like Joanne Scutt in her works argue that sex work is not only about the exchange of sex for money, but also about agency and autonomy. Meanwhile, others, like Rebecca Wisnan in Sex Work and Feminism, The Politics of Pleasure, have emphasized the need to destigmatize the profession and recognize it as a legitimate form of labor. The social and economic factors are also important. One of the reasons sex work has been persistent through history is due to underlying social and economic factors. Poverty, inequality, and lack of opportunity often push individuals into sex work as a means of earning a living. According to research by Elizabeth Bernstein in her book Temples of Desire, The Politics of Sex Work in the United States, societal structures can create a high demand for sex work while also marginalizing those who engage in it. This cycle has continued for centuries. What is the controversy around the phrase? We need to keep in our mind that not everyone agrees with calling sex work the oldest profession. Some critics argue that the phrase oversimplifies and romanticizes the reality of sex work, which is especially true as long as human trafficking is involved in any kind of sex trade. Rather than viewing it as a natural part of society, many advocates suggest we need to examine how power dynamics, gender inequality, and exploitation shape the industry. In poor or developing countries, women are not in a position to make decisions individually. Moreover, they are marginalized and exploited by the dominated male counterparts. Catherine Russell, in her book Making Sex Work, points out how the assumption that sex work is inevitable ignores the long history of social reforms that could address the root causes, like poverty and gender discrimination. What about the ethical and legal issues? Ethically and legally, the status of sex work varies widely. Some countries, like New Zealand, have decriminalized sex work, treating it as legitimate work, while others continue to criminalize it, often making it difficult for sex workers to access basic rights and protections. International bodies, like the World Health Organization and United Nations, have also weighed in on the issue, with a growing focus on ensuring the health and safety of sex workers. Above all lies the human rights perspective. In recent decades, sex work has increasingly been framed through a human rights lens. Advocates argue that those involved in sex work should have access to the same legal protections and rights as workers in any other industry. According to Martha Nussbaum, in her work Sexual Rights in Sex Work, protecting sex workers' rights is key to ensuring their dignity and freedom, whether through decriminalization or legalization. So, is sex work truly the oldest profession in the world? In one sense, it has existed in some form throughout history. However, the complex interplay of economics, culture, gender, and power makes it much more than just a simple historical fact. Today, the conversation around sex work continues to evolve, challenging us to rethink not just its role in society, but also how we treat and understand those involved in it. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective on the topic. See you in the next video. Till then, take care and stay safe.